Hi, it's Reverend Dr. Nadine Rosechild-Sullivan, and I would like to welcome you to tonight's visualization and meditation. It is November 15th, and it is 2020, and we are still in this pandemic. And just as we get ready to settle in and to visualize that which we need in our lives, let me for just a moment talk for just a minute about where we've come in the last week. So a week ago, yesterday, because this is Sunday, but a week ago on Saturday, the the electoral race was called for Joseph Biden, and Philadelphia erupted in joy, and I expressed my pride in being one of those votes for Biden that helped make that difference. But tonight, a week later, I want to hone in on just another piece of the puzzle for a moment as we prepare to visualize the future we desire. So as a sociologists have been writing for decades about two Americas, about how there are two Americas. There have been the sociologists who have written about the culture wars and how there is this tension in between one way of viewing the world and another way of viewing the world. There are sociologists that have written about the fact that there is a black America and a white America, and very different lived experiences overwhelmingly in those spaces, especially if people never cross the line and share lived experiences with each other. There's also very, very clearly, and sociology again has documented this, there's very, very clearly a rich America and a poor America. The middle class is shrinking, but there's clearly a 1%, and then there's a 99%, and there's a handful of people who might find themselves to be sort of upper middle class, but still not the same thing as being in that 1%. So there's a very, very wealthy America. There's an America that for decades was doing okay, but that America has been shrinking, especially since the 1980s and a lot of the federal and financial policies enacted under and carried forward after Ronald Reagan. But a poor and a rich America with that shrinking middle class. There are other ways in which America is very divided. It's very different to be female or male in America, and that has been true my entire life and remains true tonight. It's also very different to be straight or to be LGBTQ in the United States. Very different Americas if you're living within that sexual majority category where your sexual orientation and your gender identity is simply approved. Very different from living in a space where I'm getting some feedback. Very different than living in a space in which, one, your sexual orientation or your gender identity and presentation are not that norm. And so in this space, as we are, just put this, I'm still hearing a little feedback and I don't really want that. I'm going to talk to the thing without the AirPod. So hopefully that fixes this. But very different Americas. The election has highlighted another real divide in America today. So there's a part of America today that recognizes the democratic process, recognizes all of the things we grew up being taught in civics class, taught in grade school, taught in middle school or high school, taught in college if we've been to college, but the ways in which the institutions of this democracy are supposed to work, the structure thereof. And so that America has been, is on the one hand, is the America that understands that the Electoral College has been clearly won, that there are not enough votes outstanding in anyone's count or recount or any sort of other accusations that would in any way flip the actual election. And the Electoral College, much as I don't like the Electoral College, it is an existing structure, has been there since the Constitution, and is what it is. And then there's another America. There's another America that was marching in Washington, D.C. yesterday, that that, and almost, not 50%, but a goodly portion of the country voted for that America, and voted for an America in which, really, in truth, in which they want to follow a strongman leader that they recognize violates norms and standards, that they recognize as violating, maybe even recognize as violating those institutions of our democracy, and have excused all of that in light of wanting to follow really what is, in essence, an authoritarian leader, or would like to be the authoritarian leader, someone who has openly expressed a love for dictators in other parts of the globe, in other nations. And so it's a very, very different America if you're over in that space and you're believing that, whatever is being said from the mouth of the great one, right? Whatever's going, and so if he says it was stolen, if he says it was rigged, if he says, whatever, it doesn't matter if it fits with logic, because enmeshed in that is these other Americas, right? Enmeshed in that is all the ways in which we are divided and have been divided. So the culture wars. When I was doing my dissertation, and I was dealing with one particular committee member, that particular committee member, I was writing about LGBT people. I did my dissertation on the gay marriage movement, the fight for marriage equality, the fight for recognition of relationships, and for the host of rights that go with that container within a relationship. It's the ability to establish a relationship that friends and family will respect. It's the ability to establish custody and visitation in case there's a split up, but you've been co-parenting children. It's an opportunity to provide for a partner if you are leaving this world, and to leave whatever possessions you've amassed together to your life partner, as opposed to, having them taken by some other blood relative of the person who's passing over. So there are a lot of components. There were over 1,000 federal laws tied into the gay marriage claim, into the marriage equality claim. Let me stick with marriage equality, because that's really what it was. It's not about, gay marriage is not different. It's just two people loving each other and two people committing to each other, and that's just all there is to it. And the sex, gender of the individuals is actually not the defining feature. Love and human connectedness is actually the defining feature, and all the ways in which that can be wonderful, and all the ways in which that can go wrong, because LGBT people are just people, just as straight people and cisgendered people are people. So, but in writing about that, in looking at that, I made a statement in a preliminary draft of something that becomes the dissertation, but somewhere probably in the proposal, I made a statement that, and this is, there were I could put quotation marks around it. I'm quoting myself. I wrote, historically, gays and lesbians have been discriminated against, period. And the faculty member with whom I was working at that moment said, no, take that out. No, it sounds like you, this is not true. Things have changed. Everything's all better now. Now, understand that I was writing this statement about 2006 or 7. It was really far from all better yet at the moment that I wrote that sentence, and I was grounding it in history, but actually in the concrete reality of that moment as I was writing. State after state after state was amending its constitution to exclude marriage equality for same-sex, same-gender couples. At the time in which I was writing that, so they were amending their constitutions, they were passing state-level defense of marriage acts to say that marriage was only between one man and one woman, even though we already had a federal defense of marriage act. So there was a huge culture war factor going on at that point in time, all pointed at same-sex / gender couples, right? And so as I was like, do you need me to cite 20 scholars? Because I can go, I can go get 20 citations and put them at the end of this sentence, and put them in, in the bibliography, put them in the works cited page, because this is true, this is real. Same faculty member, who shall remain nameless, also had an issue with a statement I made about the culture wars. So there is a book called The Culture Wars, and forgive me for not looking the man's name up, the scholar's name up, but he wrote about the culture wars, and it completely rang true to me, because I had come out of evangelical Pentecostalism and was doing this work, and I knew what those who thought in that worldview thought of the people I was interviewing and their rights they were demanding. I knew the distinction between what LGBTQ people were asking for and were saying, we're human beings, we deserve these rights. This is a secular pluralistic democracy. In this democracy, there's not supposed to be an establishment of religion. If there are those politicians talking about the sacredness of marriage, they're talking within the constraints of theology. Sacredness is sacrament, is theology. And so people were saying, no, as American citizens, as people born in the United States or raised in the United States or come to the United States, we deserve full equality with anyone else in this country. It is a pluralistic democracy, not a theocracy. So that was being said on the one side. On the other side, in the worldview of evangelicals, then no, there was a sacrament and there was a sacredness, and it didn't matter about democracy. They were willing to impose theology on fellow citizens and fellow Americans without any real concern for the blurring of the boundary between church and state. And so in this space, as I'm writing and I'm talking about the culture wars, and I was using the man who wrote the book, The Culture Wars, and using his argumentation in my argument, I was being told, no, take that out. And I was like, but this is real. And I know it's real. I grew up Catholic. I did from kindergarten through 12th grade, 13 years of Catholic school. I was a good and attentive student. I felt a call to the priesthood, and, the Catholic Church didn't want me, still doesn't want me. I had found my way to get ordained somewhere else, largely because the Catholic Church didn't and doesn't want women. But I had, pressed on into ministry, and I had spent time as a minister and as a pastor and as somebody who spoke in other churches, as a guest speaker, and so I had done all of that. And so my whole life had been spent, prior to going back to grad school, really, my whole life had been spent in that mind frame, in that worldview, and it is a worldview. And into that worldview, all the divides are there and coming up again, right? So in putting on the Supreme Court someone who has, quite clearly in her writing across time, made it clear that she is opposed to LGBTQ rights, but also made it clear that she's also opposed to birth control and in vitro fertilization. It's a real culture war choice for Amy Coney Barrett to have been put on the Supreme Court. And it's a culture war choice to be calling Black Lives Matter's protesters, people who are protesting, exercising their constitutional right to address grievances with their government, that to take that and then to turn it into a rhetoric of, that villainizes them as anti-fascist. We should all be anti-fascist. I grew up post-World War II America. We were all opposed to Nazis and fascism. Europe had just come out a few, number of years before my birth, but close enough it was still part of the active memory of all the adults in my world. And so, we had come out of, we had fought, we had defeated fascism, we had defeated Nazism. But that's been stirred up and been brought up to the surface, and been brought up with an allegiance to authoritarianism. Earlier today on my Facebook page, I posted an interview with Masha Gessen, who had grew up in Russia and fled Putin's regime, and is here is here. As an American, is here, is a lesbian and an out lesbian, and has a partner or a wife, and but Masha writing about and talking about her analysis of what it's like, how to survive an autocracy, how to escape, and how to build a life anyway, and how to deal with all of these things, and other books, Madeleine Albright, far from anybody wild or out there or far left, right, wrote a book on fascism in the last 2 years or so that I listened to on tape. And so there's that space of what it is to to lose our freedoms to an autocratic ruler. So I know that the other half of America, the other half that is going, no, 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 I'm white and whiteness is better or different or deserves to be privileged in some way, or the part of America that's saying, no, no, the wealthy deserve special privileges and shouldn't have to pay the same percentage of taxes that the middle class and the poor and the working poor have to pay, right? The laboring class, that no, they should have, because we all have this, we've been sold this dream, like I want to be a billionaire, so bad, and like one of these days, I'm going to be that rich person, so I don't want there to be an inheritance tax. No, that's a death tax, like buying into all of that is about buying into a worldview in which anyone can become the 1%, anyone can press into, and I'm not saying that some people haven't pressed into the 1%, but the percentage of us that do, and your chances of it are infinitesimal, right? Just like, okay. And just like, let's be real. We're born to a class status in the United States. We're born within a caste that is in regard to sex, our sex gender. We're born into a caste in regard to our sexual orientation. We're born into a racialized caste system. We're born into a socioeconomic caste system in the United States. And the likelihood, there's a New York Times bestseller right now called Caste. Highly recommend you check it out. But to argue that, for the authoritarian who was born in the 1%, with a golden spoon in his mouth and a golden toilet under his rear end, and all to be leaning that way to the detriment of your health. So we're in this place, right? We're in this place in regard to our health in the United States. So tonight, as I update the COVID stats every week, because I honor science, I believe in spirit, I believe in a divine, I believe in an afterlife. I personally do still, I am spiritual, and I believe in the ability of us collectively to visualize and create. I mean, I have my spiritual beliefs, which I'm inviting you to join with me in exercising in a few moments. But before we go there, I also believe in science and honor science, and we need to honor science. So Biden and Harris did win the election, and in winning the election, they have set up a pandemic response team. And I have to say, I really like the man, Dr. Bright, that they've put in charge of that pandemic response team, because he really told us the truth when he testified before Congress earlier this year about what this fall and winter hold. And he said, if we don't mitigate this virus, which we have not, our low this summer was higher than our high in the spring, or was as high as if you're looking at the swooping curve of the graph, was our low in July and August and September was what was happening in April in New York City. So we have not beaten this thing, and we have not properly mitigated it. We have almost half our nation running around maskless and angry about masks and refusing to wear them and taking them off. We're about to go into Thanksgiving. Last week, I don't know why, for the life of me, I do. The school district that my grandsons are in opened at that point. Opened in November as flu season is about to start. Opened, they were there, they split the school into some people going Monday, Tuesday, some going Thursday, Friday, and now they're shutting it down again. So, that's something there, that 2 weeks worth of being open, just enough to try to spread the virus to some teachers. The teachers are exposed to all of the students. If I were a teacher in that school, I'd be there Monday, Tuesday with one half of my class, and Thursday, Friday with the other. I've been blessed to be able to be virtual with my students from last March through the end of spring term, through this summer, and through this fall. Pretending doesn't do us any good when it comes to science. The virus doesn't care. We're going into Thanksgiving. Think it through. Think through your plans. Think through the way you plan to handle it. think through your mitigation efforts. Do your best to keep yourself from being sick. I know that already the Philadelphia hospitals, the ICUs, are already overwhelmed and being overwhelmed. I know that New Jersey, the cases are rising. I know that Delaware, which, you know, you can just drive across, you don't even need, there's not even a geographic border between part of Pennsylvania, south of Philadelphia, and Delaware. And, you know, there's like one place where you have to cross a bay, but there's another part where you can just, you know, stay on 95 and be in Delaware in, you know, a few minutes' time. And in that space, right, Delaware's on fire. So the globe, because I also think as Americans we're very Americentric, and I know I'm also guilty of that, and you know, maybe almost irreparably so. But you know, to take a moment and honor what's happening around the globe as well. At this moment, on the planet we share with all other human beings, there are 54,781,127 diagnosed cases. Diagnosed cases, people who were tested and tested positive. Many places, including much of the United States, much of the pandemic, have not had access to tests. So that stat was from 6 p.m. this evening, 54 million, almost 55 million. It is an increase over last week of over 4 million cases. Deaths in the globe at this point are over 1,300,000, with an increase of over 63,000 people dying this week on our planet from COVID-19. Anyone who's telling you that it's not COVID they're dying from, that they're dying of their diabetes and they wouldn't know, they're dying of COVID-19. Stop playing with your own mind. Stop letting anyone play with your mind. This is real. In the United States, and I know it's real because it's affected people around me this entire time, being in the Northeast, where it pretty much, you know, breaks out with the exception of Seattle. But in the United States, as of 6 p.m. this evening, November 15, 2020, we were at 11,300 and almost 49,000 diagnosed cases. Over 11 million, on our way to 11.5 million. We'll cross that this week. We are up from last week 1,086,000 cases in 1 week. That is an increase in cases of approximately 155,000 a day, with yesterday being the new high, with 159,121 new cases diagnosed just yesterday in the U.S. 11/14, Saturday, 11/14, as people were masklessly marching on Washington, D.C. We had over 159,000 diagnoses yesterday. Our death count, I use ncov2019.live, ncov2019.live. That count there, and that's for consistency, that's the count I've been using all along. They're the tracker I've been using. We are at 251,784 deceased fellow Americans, people's friends and family, human beings with lives, many of them not on their deathbed with Alzheimer's or dementia, real people with real lives, with not to say anything bad about those with Alzheimer's, but I'm talking about it wasn't just those at the end. It's been all kinds, all ages, all genders, all races. It's been there have been more deaths in Black and brown communities, in large measure because of the ways in which economics work in the United States, and those who have had to be essential workers and be out there in the virus, not able to work from home in quarantine. But that is a case a death count increase this week alone, since I last made one of these videos, of 8,134 people, which is about 1,162 deaths per day, an average of 1,162. And yesterday's high was higher than the average. Yesterday's death count in the U.S. was 1,210 people on Saturday, 11/14. So I'm asking you about which America you want, and which America you want to visualize with me tonight. I want back the America that believes in civil rights, fights for civil rights, where civil rights win. I understand it was a divided America then, too. There were certainly those opposing the civil rights of those who were fighting for civil rights, whichever movement, whatever social movement we're talking about. There have been those who opposed justice and those who fought for justice. But I want an America in which there's a duly elected president who leaves office if he's not reelected or at the end of his term, who has a peaceful transition of power, and who turns over the reins of government in an ongoing stream, and in which we have an opportunity to affect, to change those in the House and the Senate and the presidency, in which honor is paid to whom gets to appoint people to the Supreme Court of the United States. I want presidents and presidential candidates who give us their tax returns, who have to give us their tax returns before they can run, who have to honor the Emoluments Clause and put their assets into a trust before they assume the office of the presidency, who don't make money off of being president, and who do not attempt to honor dictators around the globe and talk about, joke or not joke, about being president for life. I want back our flawed system, but our system nonetheless. So as you visualize with me tonight, recognize we are envisioning the America in which our electoral process is honored and rectified, one in which much of the voter suppression of the past decades is undone, in which the gerrymandering can be undone, in which the voter purge is stopped. There was all sorts of inequity already in the system. We want back the system where politicians cannot have unaccounted for millions and billions of dollars funneled to them without any. We want back the system where they need to name their donors and small dollar donors, and where they're not bought and paid for by corporations and billionaires. We want America. Don't you want America? Don't you want democracy for all our sins? For the genocide that we're founded in, and for the genocide against the indigenous populations here, and the genocide against the Africans who were brought here enslaved, for all of the sins of America, the limping forward of our nation has been people pressing in to the great words of the founding documents and demanding that those documents mean something. And so again, we demand that they mean something, and we also take the time now to visualize that you and yours and me and mine make it through this pandemic and whatever economic repercussions are part of it, that we make it through to the other side, still standing. Go with me now, in your mind's eye, like a bored child in a grade school classroom. Begin to pretend in your mind to picture, as I said last week, if I say black dog, you see those words in your mind. See the words we're envisioning together now. Allow this picture to form in you, and hold fast with me for this to increasingly be the reality that we live in, and for that divided other part of our country to come back from that brink that they've been on, to stop worshiping the strong man, to want democracy again, and equality, liberty, and justice for all, no matter our economics, our sex, our gender, our orientation, our identity or presentation, or our race or ethnicity, or native origin, or religious status, or a able-bodiedness, where we want liberty and justice for all. Go with me now. Begin to envision that you and yours, picture your family, your friends, your most significant others, and bring them into a circle of light with you, like the actor standing on the stage. Envision a light beam coming down, and in the large circle of that light are you and yours. As I envision me and mine in our circle of light, and if you will, envision that that light is coming down from Source, from the universe, from God, the divine, whatever you envision, however you envision that to be. Or if you don't have that kind of belief system, just envision nonetheless a circle of protective light that functions like a force field, that knocks away all of the weapons that would come against you and yours. Picture it being a protective factor, like being enveloped in a force field of energy, like deflector shields that keep you and yours safe. And in that space, imagine with me health and strength and life. See the breath in your lungs being full, complete, easy. Envision yourself able to inhale deeply and exhale fully. See your diaphragm moving, that wall of muscle that down beneath your lungs as your lungs expand. See your diaphragm moving and your abdomen moving outward and coming in as you exhale, out and in, over and over. And in this moment, see that breath as an exchange of giving and receiving. As you breathe in that air, that oxygen, see that that oxygen not only feeds your body, but it cleanses through you, moves through you, goes from your lungs to your bloodstream and cleanses and feeds every cell, every organ, every tissue. And as you exhale, recognize that your exhale feeds the plants, the grass, the trees, the plant life of the earth. Inhales your carbon dioxide. You inhale their exhale, the oxygen. They make the oxygen. Allow yourself to see, to feel, to know that there's a give and a take, a receiving and a giving, a back and a forth, an ebb and a flow to your breath, to your being here in this space. And your breath contributes as you breathe out. It contributes to the plants. But for the duration of the pandemic, as you breathe out in public, you do it masked so as to protect yourself and others. But it still gets there to the plants. Feel the sense of being whole and well. And envision with me that every politician be someone of character and quality. See politicians who are dedicated to being servants of the people, not to themselves, not to lining their own pockets or making themselves great, but to the nation, to the people. Other politicians in other parts of the globe see authoritarianism pushed back, fascism pushed back, Nazism pushed back. Envision an increasingly democratic world, and a world in which the nations of the earth, and those who are serving the people by leading, ministering to the people of their nations by serving as their leaders. See them coming together to join even better climate accords, to make a shift and a change, to turn it back while there's time, that our children and children's children and our children's 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 children may be able to continue to inhabit this planet, that the plants may stay green, that the ice caps may stay frozen or refreeze. See humankind turning back its own destructiveness, remembering how during the pandemic in the spring, how the plant life got so happy, how the birds were singing and the air was cleaner. All around the globe, the industrial cities where the air got cleaner. Here, where there was less soot on all the plants outside our doors. See the earth recovering herself. She longs to heal. Our bodies love to heal. Our planet loves to heal. See healing coming back. Envision with me that all the structures of democracy are reinstated. Proper leadership, good leadership, honorable leaders doing their best to make things better, paying the ancestors back for their sacrifices. Just past Veterans Day here this last Wednesday, paying the ancestors back for their sacrifices for our good and our well-being, and paying it forward to our descendants. And imagine a world in which we can hold our heads up high as a people, as a nation, because we do not commit human rights abuses any longer, but where we have learned from our sins and where children are restored to their parents, where families are not divided at the border, where all the money put toward incarcerating parents and children goes instead toward a court system to deal with the refugees coming in because other nations are struggling because of climate change and because of ways their politics have been harmed. Take this moment and envision all that you need to see here and now. And see yourself and your loved ones making it through this cold and flu season. As you sit in the quiet, let your own intuitive inner guidance speak to you about how you should handle this Thanksgiving and this Christmas. See yourself visiting with those you choose to, masked, keeping some physical distance even as you celebrate, maybe celebrating virtually, those in your closest bubble in person, but being aware of those who must go in and out as essential workers and taking the necessary precautions, even as we give thanks, even as we celebrate our winter holidays, whether Hanukkah or Christmas or Yule or whatever our holidays may be this fall, this winter, whatever your background, whatever your spirituality, see making the best choices for your loved ones and yourself, and truly recognize what they didn't really stress and should have all along. Your mask keeps you safe. And as the sound of the rain outside my window becomes part of this visualization, allow yourself to see the earth and our lives refreshing themselves. A good, refreshing rain bringing back the water of liberty and justice. Just imagine you make it through, and we make it through this winter. We do what is wise. And real response, real governmental response for the United States and for every nation steps forward, and the scientists lead us forward. See real mitigation of this virus, and see as spring comes again, as we round into March and April, allow yourself to envision that this year, coming up in the spring of 2021, that as the flowers return, as spring, as we turn to that other side of the year, just having entered the dying time of the year, as we re-enter the rebirthing time of the year, allow yourself to see the real chance to move forward, virus mitigated. See good vaccines that work even beyond what we can hope or imagine, turning that over to the divine to do even better than we dare to hope for. But just see, coming back to a much more normal life, moving forward. But now let yourself be in November, in this time of the year when in a different kind of society, in an agricultural time, we would have gone inside with all our food stores laid up for winter, and we would have hibernated some as the days were shorter and the plants were harvested. A time to read, a time to relax, a time to sleep. And take a moment now to visualize those in the United States who have lost their jobs and their housing, and see the incoming administration doing for them. See it moving forward. See all that we need in regard to unemployment payments and stimulus, to not just one-time $1,200, like that does much for most of us, but see real help. See real help both for tenants and for landlords. See real help for those with mortgages. See all that we need going forward. And expand your heart to care about every person in America and on this planet sharing this space with you. See racial and gender justice, equity, truth, life, love, health, peace, survival, and strength and wellness. And now, as you picture the virus having passed over us, allow yourself to envision that you and yours, and me and mine, when this is over, that we are still standing, strong, healthy, embodied. That those of us who have not contracted the virus make it through without contracting the virus. And that those of us who have, and who are still on this side of the veil, see them recovering fully. Even the long haulers, take a moment and see the way forward for each person and their health to improve, to recover their life, their strength, their abilities. And see that light expanding outward to include neighbors and friends, co-workers, your region, all those round about you. Until next week, hold the vision. We make it through, and we become a more unified nation again. The United States is meant to be a place where each one has freedom of religion, but true spirituality, true religion, does not hate others. True religion doesn't seek to take the civil rights, the human rights from others. It's not religious freedom to exercise unkindness and discrimination against those who don't believe like you do. See our country coming back, finding its way forward again as we return to an America where the fight for liberty and justice makes new progress. I see you with health insurance. I see you with all the care you need. I see you with the economic subsistence and that you need to get through this time. I see you and yours, and me and mine, safe and well and united in an America with leadership that cares. Be blessed and be well.